So, one area that we've not engaged and that we need to discuss now is one of regional security. Somalia is a key part to the security puzzle of the Horn. And we've seen that recent developments are really shaking the place. One is the Memorandum of Understanding between Ethiopia and Somaliland, getting Ethiopia access to the sea. Two is the war in Sudan. Three is Somalia's membership in East Africa Community. Of course, we also have the defense and economic agreement between Turkey and Somalia. All these are drivers of something, whether it's going to be a full-blown conflict between the various countries or it's going to transition to something. Can you address some of these issues? Particularly the first one, right? The first ones, meaning the Memorandum of Understanding. We know there's been this issue about sovereignty of Somaliland and the position of Ethiopia. And now we have the Turkey-Somalia deal, which itself, though it's been said to help Somalia protect its seas, its shores, against piracy, against so on. We know the potential there, the explosive potential.
Well, up until now we were discussing Somalia as if it's this little island in isolation from the rest of the world. But Somalia is indeed part and parcel of the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea area and the larger African continent. And what transpires in the region would have severe consequences to begin with, first of all, on the Somali people. Any negative development in the region, in the form of a new conflict, in the form of intrusion into our lands by some of our neighbors, has a serious consequence on the one and only priority we have as our number one priority, which is to fight off Al-Shabab. So as we were successfully fighting off Al-Shabab, finalizing our debt relief, arms embargo, thinking about our future development, aspirations. On the 1st of January this year, the Ethiopian government decided to get into an MoU with Somaliland, which is part and parcel of the Somali state, despite some grievances in Somaliland about the nature of the union in the past. There has been constant dialogue processes to accommodate the grievances of the people of Somaliland and ensure that their concerns are integrated into the constitutional review process so that their political and other rights that they pursue are incorporated into Somalia's nation-building agenda. On the 1st of January, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, gets into an MoU with Somaliland, an MoU that clearly violates Somalia's sovereignty and integrity and unity. A very unexpected move and uncalled for in an already very volatile Horn of Africa. An MoU that we have not seen in its totality, but what we can extrapolate from a summary that has been given by the Ethiopian authorities and some public engagements done by the Somaliland leadership, is one that envisions the establishment of a naval base in the Somali seas and also ports. It's very ironic that Ethiopia would go to such a length. First of all, there is no shortage of accessibility to ports for Ethiopia. They use the port of Djibouti. They use the port of Berbera, which is part of Somalia, in Somaliland. They use the ports of Kenya, Eritrea. And we are more than willing to provide more ports in a legal and mutually beneficial arrangements. But this is akin to annexation in our reading of it. And the Somali government has clearly articulated that in various forums, from the African Union that was just concluded recently, to an IGAD forum, an extraordinary one that was called for, during the non-alignment movement meeting in Kampala, Uganda, and in the UN and all the other forums. And most of the institutions have reaffirmed the need to respect Somali sovereignty. So I want to highlight one fact, that Al-Shabab, that is creating havoc for the Somali people, was not part of our history. The genesis and the foundations of Al-Shabab can be traced back to Ethiopia's earlier invasion of Somalia in 2006-07. That time under the claim that they were protecting the Somali government of the day. But the genesis of Al-Shabab can be traceable to that day. And when the nation fails, people hold on to some radical ideas at times. So Al-Shabab was able to cash on that interference and the absence of a viable government to try to assert itself on the Somali people. And we think there is a huge risk there too. Finally, in Sudan, we are extremely saddened by the developments in Sudan as a nation that went through failure and struggles and fragility. We know how long it takes to come back from that path. We advise our Sudanese brothers. A lot of Somalis were educated in Sudan, were settled there when our nation failed. So we hope the best for them. On the issue of membership with the EEC, I think that is very expected, and Somalia, located strategically in the Red Sea, has a lot to offer to the rest of the East African community, and we will mutually benefit from both sides of the relationship. The Turkey agreement, we have partnerships, economic and security partnerships with various countries, and Turkey happens to be one of those. And in fact, the Turkish government has heavily invested in Somalia's health sector, security sector, and many other areas, infrastructure, in the past 10 years. And this agreement that we have now is one that ensures that the Somali state is able to develop in the long term a viable naval capabilities to protect its seas from the dumping of toxic materials, piracy, and uncertainties that comes in the seas, and also ensuring that our sovereignty is protected. Turkey is not the only partner we have. We have partnerships with the Americans. We have partnerships with many other Arab countries, and African Union has been a great partner for us. So it's one of those instruments at our disposal.
What you just said about Ethiopia's engagement in the region, I think without saying it, or maybe you meant to say it, that Ethiopia's action often has, the actions often have negative repercussions for the region, and the case of Al-Shabab being one of them. Do you see this latest action, the Memorandum of Understanding between Somaliland and Ethiopia, as such action with tremendous potential for trouble for both countries, Ethiopia and Somalia, but potentially more even for Somalia?
Well, of course. And I think the intelligence reports that we are getting indicate that Al-Shabab has already started to use this as a recruitment campaign in these developments. And as the Somali people were increasingly coming to reject Al-Shabab and its ways, this really risks our peace building and state building agenda in the immediate sense and also the long term. But this is not a threat to only Somalia. Ethiopia's ill-informed decision to infringe on the sovereignty and rights of the Somali state has the prospect of creating much bigger problem than just Somalia. Ethiopia itself is grappling with multiple domestic challenges. The Horn of Africa, when you look from faraway places, is known, sadly, for a history of conflicts. In the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you look back at history, it is a very dark history of war, intrastate, ethno-nationalism, communal. And this was the least expected move to create yet another wave of uncertainty and warfare. That is one industry that the Somalis wanted to shut down. the idea of engaging in warfare. It is not our calling. Till today, we are not propagating for a war with Ethiopia or any of our neighbors. But that does not mean we will not stand for protecting our sovereignty at whatever cost it may come.
Is the agreement between Turkey and Somalia a reaction to Ethiopia's action?
Well, the agreement between Turkey and Somalia is a continuity of a series of prior agreements and arrangements we have had. And it's a very timely one because Somalia intends to increase its economic growth capacity, and our future is tied to our seas, marine resources, fisheries, protecting them, preserving that, and also capitalizing on that in terms of trade, as well as utilization of our strategic location for our future economic growth model, and demands that we keep and protect our seas and shores. I mean, you recall we had a legal case with Kenya not that long ago that was amicably settled in the right institutions, in the International Court of Justice, and the ruling was in our favor. That was done in a very civilized way. But when it comes to the annexation of today, it can really be a source of concern. So maybe analysts would like to link the two developments. But Turkey for us has been a long-standing strategic partner.
Your Excellency, we'll take questions from the audience, the people who've been listening to us, who are interested in engaging with you directly. So the first question is, how is the government of Mogadishu approaching the recent port access deal made between Ethiopia and Somaliland? What does this mean for the future of Somalia and Ethiopia relations? That's our first question.
Well, I think I've just answered that. The Somali government has clearly and categorically rejected that deal and pronounced it as an illegal deal in the context of international law, in the context of customary law, in the context of normal trading and economic arrangements. Somaliland occupies a very strategic location in the Red Sea. And I'm from there, by the way. And the people of Somaliland have had a set of grievances in the past. And the various governments that existed in Somalia for the last many years have always tried to ensure that any development programs or investment that came in the way of Somaliland were not, restricted. For instance, there is this deal with the DP World, in which even Ethiopia was one of the investors in the modification and the enhancement of the Berbera port and the corridor that serves Ethiopia and other parts of Somaliland. So we are all up for legal and mutually beneficial arrangements that does not go against the sovereignty of Somalia. So the future of Ethiopia and Somalia, the question to answer it directly, depends on how we deal with this situation. We are yet and have not and do not intend to take any measures that would infringe on their sovereignty. And we ask them to retract from this rather unacceptable and illegal action. So the onus is on them in this case.
The next question is, does the government of Somalia have specific plans to take advantage of the ascension to the EAC, the East Africa Community?
Yes. It's still in the making, but as you would know, the Somali people are known, other than being very brave folks, they are known for their entrepreneurial and trading capabilities. Wherever you go to in Africa, you will find a Somali doing business, especially in the East Africa community. with our access to the Red Sea, the Arabian Gulf, the Indian Ocean, and our trading capabilities, we hope to be able to capitalize on that in a very sectoral manner. So we are having a set of committees in agriculture, in fisheries, in transport, in investment and finance sectors of Somalia, and how they can benefit from this arrangement. We're also, part of COMESA. We are part of there's this much bigger initiative of Africa Free Trade Integration Agenda, World Trade Organization. So it will be one of those things we believe would be to the benefit of our business communities and the Somali state.
Speaking of the location, it's about location. As tension between the US and Yemen rise in the Red Sea, has Somalia been impacted? What is the Somali government view of these tensions in the Red Sea? How can they be resolved from your perspective?
Well, as one of the primary states in the Red Sea area, Somalia is of the view that the peace and the stability of the Red Sea is a prerequisite to the peace and the development of all of us in that region and other international actors who utilize the Red Sea route. So we call for a cessation of any hostilities in that arena. And for us as a community that for now imports about 70% of their food supply from outside, any disturbance in those global supply lines would have much more dire consequence on us than other communities. So we are all for restraint and peaceful and amicable solutions to any developments in the Red Sea area, and we call upon all our partners to pursue that objective.
Two more questions. Somaliland has struck a port deal with UAE, United Arab Emirates. Why the harsh reactions towards Ethiopia?
Well, for one, the UAE deal does not include the establishment of a naval base and security component in that past. It was a deal in which Somaliland and the UAE, the company, the DP World, and Ethiopia were looking at economic benefits of that arrangement. And the Somali government has been very cautious of taking measures that would be seen as an infringement on the development rights of Somaliland before the dialogue of unity is finalized. But these are not comparable arrangements. In fact, we just came from the African Union where we simply requested Ethiopia to pronounce that they respect the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Somalia, and they have not been able to do so in the public domain. So these are not two comparable scenarios. The Somali government that I'm part of as someone from Somaliland is all up for any arrangements that are within the confines of rules of international law and customary law and best practice, business practices that would contribute to the well-being and the benefit of the people of Somaliland, the larger people of Somalia, and even to our neighbors. But it has to be done in an appropriate manner. It's akin to Somalia taking over, getting into an agreement with Amhara region and trying to take over the Tana River and all these things. It's just not prudent.
The last one, can you explain if the government is taking any steps to combat piracy off the coast, which can affect commerce?
Well, a lot of measures have been taken over the years, and piracy was becoming a thing of the past. I mean, 10 years ago, piracy was the lenses through which the world, or maybe 15 years ago, looked at Somalia, but it has been diminishing with time. There were few incidents here and there, one-off rare incidents, and one of the measures to cope with the long-term impact of piracy. Piracy is a product of ungovernable spaces. It's a product of poverty. Pirates do not just appear out of nowhere. Pirates are a product of the prevailing circumstances in these conditions. So one of the measures is by getting into this agreement with Turkey. Hopefully Somalia at large would develop the naval capabilities and the capacity to provide security to its coastal communities, to fend off illegal fishing, which is the origins of the emergence of piracy in Somalia, and to create a conducive environment for trade and investment in the fisheries industry. So these are some of the measures we're taking.
Given all that you've said, Your Excellency, today, how should we think of the Horn today?
The Horn is a very interesting place that evokes very mixed feelings. It's a place that has great potential, hope, and offers a great deal of optimism. If the leadership of the Horn, in collaboration with their partners, would work on policies and economic programs that would integrate, enhance, and increase our trading capabilities, one. A set of policies that would address the root causes of the troubles of the Horn, which is lack of economic growth, and not arising from lack of resources in terms of human or other natural resources, but lack of investment of human capital. In my view, as an observer and one of the leaders of the Horn, I think I would be more optimistic, provided we don't take politically ill-informed and irrational decisions to create another set of conflicts. If you look at the reports produced by the UN, by international research institutions, the Horn of Africa has been identified as the most hard hit in terms of climate change. The Horn of Africa has been known and continues to be one of the most conflict-prone places in the world. The Horn of Africa has a lot of political issues to settle in terms of people's participation in politics and people's representation. The Horn of Africa is yearning for a better future, and much of it rests on the shoulders of its leaders. And it's moments like this when leaders should rise and work on sustainable agendas, not some unimaginable ideas that could create havoc once again in the Horn of Africa. When I was born, Somalia was at war with Ethiopia. When I left Somalia, Somalia was at war with itself. When I came back, the Somalis were at war with one another by trying to provide an alternative interpretation to Islam. I hope all those wars would be wars of the past, and the future would be one of mutual coexistence and the pursuit of better human conditions for our societies.
Your Excellency Salah Ahmed Jammeh, Deputy Prime Minister of the Federal Government of Somalia, I would like to thank you for joining us today and offering your insight and perspective into development into your country, but into the Horn as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This concludes our session for the day, and we thank you for joining us from whatever you did today. Thank you.